one of the silks we found for our presentation is called the peace silk or ahimsa silk, and it is different from regular silk because when they make regular silk, they boil the silkworm alive inside their cocoon, while the himsa or peace silk allows the silkworm or moth to completely leave their cocoon naturally and doesn't kill it before they make it into the silk. In that process, the cocoon does come out damaged, but it still gives the same feel as regular silk, and it has a slightly raw appearance to it due to it being damaged. A lot of silk companies don't like using that method, the humane method, because it is a longer process. It takes up to 10 days for them to leave the cocoon naturally. And when the silkworms have to go on their own, it just takes longer. But the less humane way takes about 15 minutes. Sustainably, organizations like the Global Organic Textile Standard, they support the use of organic fibers. And they promote it in their shops, and they have items that are used or with organic textiles, and they promote textiles from quote environmentally and socially responsible manufacturing. Along with the sustainability, when a person is considering silk to make their garments, they have to think of a lot of things that go into it, like the risks to the agriculture, the animal rights for the silkworms, water consumption, pollution, and the impact on the communities around them. And they have to consider these things like the chemicals that they use for the silk. They use a lot of pesticides, and that in turn damages the plants and it contaminates the water, and they're losing fish and they're dying. So they have to take into consideration everything that is involved in the process of making silk. And a lot of silkworms do end up dying before they even get to turn themselves into moths and grow. And a lot of companies are trying to prevent that and let them go naturally on their own.
Samsara is what we decided to call our clothing line. What that means is death and life, kind of like reborn. So, what makes us ethical and sustainable? She already talked about piece of ahimsa. I don't want to botch it, but she already talked about her first silk. So I'm just gonna skip through that. These are our silk fabrics and color board and color palettes that we have. So these are the fabrics for ahimsa, and these are some of the clothing items that we produce for our clothing line. So I'm going to be talking about the mulberry silk. The mulberry silk, what it is silkworm's saliva. So whatever it leaves behind, that's what we kind of gather up, and then we harvest that. So after we harvest that, whatever is left after it has been harvested, we just kind of lurch it into the threads, and that's when it becomes the fiber. So after that process, it does leave a little bit of waste, but it is very, very low waste. So what it is pupae. It leaves behind pupae and the outer shell of the cocoon. So the pupae is used it is actually imported to Asian countries or China, and what happens is they use that as a snack, which is very rich in protein, so they eat that. I personally wouldn't eat that, but they do. So to each their own. The outer shell, which is the outer cocoon, they use that sometimes to stuff pillows, kind of to use it for the pillows that we buy in Target or Walmart, etc. Another thing that they use it for is fertilization. So they use that for as a fertilizer, and they just put it back into plants, which is a really big bonus into this silk because we use it for our environment. And yeah, that's a really big thing in how this fabric is sustainable and environmental. Another thing that I wanted to talk about was the sustainability. So the sustainability of this is it's really raw. It's a really raw thread before it is spun and lurched. So what that means is it doesn't have any gluten free. It doesn't have any. It's really gluten free. It's dairy free, which is really good because it's not harming any of the other animals. The only con to this mulberry silk is sometimes within this process of creating the fiber is some silkworms are killed or are harmed. So that's a minus. But other than that, it's really good. It's hypoallergenic. It's very natural, and it's also the highest quality fiber of silk that they have in the industry of fashion. So yeah, that is, I tried to speak on this really quickly because I feel like we already have a lot of content, but it is resistant to pollution, and it also has some medicinal properties, which medicinal properties probably isn't a fashion related, obviously, but it's just really good for medicinal purposes. So this is some of our fabrics for the silk and our color palette for the mulberry silk, and these are some of the designs that we produce in our collection. These are our sources. They will all be active once this presentation is not there, but yes, that is it. Thank you for watching. That's our clothing line.